I did what a lot of 17-year-olds did. I
Right.
made myself available to the military. The reasons for that was that I didn't want to wait to be drafted, because draft, you became a reserve. I wanted to be regular, whatever service was, and I picked the Navy. Now, I took boot camp at a place called Camp Reidy, Virginia, and when I left camp after boot camp, I was sent to the Bureau of Naval Personnel in Washington, Arlington, right outside Washington. Well, I didn't like that duty. I didn't like being a file clerk, and so I bothered them for almost a year, and I got transferred to sea duty. I wanted a destroyer, and I got the destroyer Hyman, and I got it on my chest there. See it?
Yeah.
That was my ship.
Could you take that stick a little bit?
Oh.
Yeah.
And that ship must have logged billions of gallons of water under the keel.
Mm-hmm.
And we went all over the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, the North and South Atlantic, up into the Channel, and things like that. Now, destroyers, the duty of the destroyer is to place itself, to protect the capital ships. Anti-submarine warfare, picket duty, watching the, looking for air defense for the capital ships, and if that failed, then their duty was to place themselves between an incoming projectile and the capital ships. Aircraft carriers. Mainly, we worked with the aircraft carrier Roosevelt as a plane guard. We would tag along behind them. If a plane went in a drink, we would rescue the pilots. Now, at the end of my, when I left I didn't leave the ship. When I left the ship in 1945, we were just finishing taking reserves out into the Caribbean for their 2-week cruises. So I got discharged in August of 1945. Now, the primary duty that I remember the most was when the ship was dispatched to Haifa, which was then Palestine. Our duty was to guard, again, the United Nations had mediators in there. They were trying to broker a peace between the Israelis and the Arabs. And our function there was to take the civilians, and all civilians and the UN people off the beach in case the Arabs came over the hill, and to rescue them. And I really appreciate that. I figured at that time I was one of about 1,000 enlisted men involved in the emergence of freedom-loving democratic nation of Israel. I got discharged in August of 45. I went home, and a year later we were at war again in Korea. And one side of my brain says, you got to go help. The other side says, you already did yours. You don't have to go help. And I debated and debated with myself. And they were pushed down, the U.S. troops were pushed down into the Busan perimeter. Then I realized that, hey, if I went back in now, and by the time I got trained and sent over there, they would be out of Busan. They'd be swimming back to Japan. See? So General MacArthur then went up to Incheon, and that was to win the war by Christmas. So I said to myself, well, they're going to win the war by Christmas. The same deal. I will be trained and deployed somewheres, and I will have to finish a 3-year hitch with boredom. So I waited. But then when they started going up and down the peninsula, around the 38th parallel where they were adjusting the line, then I said, well, it's time for me to go now. So I enlisted in the Army. That was in 1952. and I was sent to, I took training at Fort Dix, New Jersey, radio school, and then was sent to the Korea 7th Infantry Division, where I worked as a communications specialist, field wire, radio, everything to do with communications. M222 converter. Now, if I told you this in 1952, I would have to kill you. To penetrate into the Chinese positions. Well, all we could do was defend.
Why not?
I have no idea. But they would send 125,000 people. All we could do was hold our line. I don't know why they didn't want to go forward. They all done with it. MacArthur had been fired. They were no longer interested in holding North Korea, and they didn't want to antagonize the Russians and the Chinese, I suppose. And so all we could do was defend the positions. Now, the 17th Infantry Regiment, which was the regiment that I was in, 7th Division, during the battle on Pork Chop, I understand, decimated 3 Chinese armies. They just kept sending them. And I was in support position. I wasn't in the line of, right in the combat line. I was held in support. Meanwhile, what precipitated this fight, we believe, was because Syngman Rhee opened the prison camps and let them all out. The Chinese demanded that we send all of the prisoners back to China, and we decided that if they wanted to go to Formosa or stay in South Korea or some other Oriental place or wherever they wanted to go, that's where we would send them. Meanwhile, our prisoners of war all wanted to come home except for 21. 21 stayed there. And those peace talks lasted 2 years. The actual fight for Korea was over after a year. The North Korean army had been decimated. The Chinese had taken over, sponsored by the Russians. The Russians were financing everything. Well, the Russians decided it was costing them too much money. So they decided to start the peace talks and get them going. But after Syngman Rhee opened the prisoner of war camps and let all these people run loose, some of them they wanted to go back to China, started back up towards the line, were infiltrating and trying to get across the line and go back. I don't know how many there were that wanted to go back. Most of them wanted to be sent somewhere else. And that's when we had a lot of trouble, especially in communications. Now, like I said, our detachments were all on the reverse slopes, and artillery was coming into these reverse slopes, and they couldn't figure out how it happened. How could they be getting these? Well, all through the war, they couldn't hit these reverse slopes. Of course, we moved a lot, and back at 7th Signal Company, 7th Division Signal Company, where they had all the radio trucks, a Korean decided to try to monitor frequencies to see how they could be doing it. They were getting rounds in back at Division, for instance. And they discovered that someone in Chinese was calling rounds in. Calling the rounds in. See, he was using the radio in one of the trucks. Now, all the trucks had a map on the wall, because they moved the trucks here and there, so they had to go where they go. And a radio truck is like a pickup truck with a big cab on the back, like a delivery truck or something like that, with all the radio gear in it. And he was monitoring this direction finder, I guess. And they he finally discovered one truck that was putting out signals to the Chinese where to fire their the coordinates for all the bases,
So actually inviting.
Oh yeah, he was calling in. They would call it calling in the rounds. See, he was calling in the rounds. And when they found him, they got him out of the truck. I don't know what they did with him. I got a good idea what they did with him. But so after that, they signed the peace treaty, and I was there another while. I was there 14 months altogether.
So were you there when the armistice was signed?
Yes, yes.
Could you describe about when you first hear about that?
Well, I was happy. I wanted it to end, but I always believed that a ceasefire was a bad thing because it gives the weakest party a chance to consolidate, build up their own. And now look at this ceasefire. What's it been? 60 years?
Yes.
60 years.
Next year will be 60 years.
Look at Israel and the Israelis. It's been 70 years. And you know, I like to brag, see, that because I was one of those about 1,000 guys, the crew of the ship, you know, and the two other ships that were there relieved each other, and at the port of Haifa, out in the bay. We couldn't point the guns to ashore. Every time we swung on anchor, the guns had to be trained out to sea. We were under the UN flag there too, for that instance. Like I said, I was proud of the fact that I was involved in the emergence of this freedom-loving, democratic nation of Israel. I'm also proud of the fact that I was in part of the emergence of the freedom-loving, democratic nation of South Korea, which is now what, the 10th or 11th?
12th largest economy in the world.
Yes, and that's my claim to fame. But the only problem is everybody's still at each other's throats. It's like my time was wasted. But then when I came home after I was rotated after my 14 months in Korea, I was sent to the 3rd Division. No, the 47th Infantry Division was down in Fort Benning, Georgia. I don't want to say nothing bad about the 47th, but you got my attitude there. They were National Guard units that were taken from Wisconsin and I think Minnesota. They sent them to Camp Rucker, Alabama, and then they marched them, had a fuel problem from Camp Rucker, Alabama to Fort Benning, Georgia. And that's how they picked all their non-coms. And when I got there, after being in Korea in the 7th Infantry Division, which was a soldier's outfit, I couldn't believe what was going on. But, and I had to spend a year there, spent my last year there. And after about 6 or 7 months, they transferred the 3rd Division from Korea, the flags, just the flags, you know, just the leadership, to Fort Benning, and they sent the 47th back to Minnesota and everything changed. Then we became an Army outfit. I couldn't understand that. It had the same personnel, but the officer corps had changed and they shaped them up.
The Korean War has been on the status of ceasefire for 6 years.
Yeah.
It's going to be. And it's going to be daunting task to end that, to replace that with the peace treaty. China, North Korea, they may not, or by rhetoric, they want to replace it with the peace treaty. But regardless of how they're going to react to an idea to end this war officially, would you be willing to sign the petition if it becomes just a symbolic, even if it becomes just symbolic gesture or the suggestions for us to declare that we want to wrap this war?
You want to unify the peninsula. I asked Pastor Joseph Lee. Do you know Joseph Lee? He had the Korean church on West Genesee Street, or East Genesee Street.
Long time ago.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
We were there for the Koreans threw a party for us, you know. We were there on one Sunday, and I asked the people that were taking care of us. I asked them what flag they would fly if they had to pick a new flag. Would they fly the star with the the blue with the star, or would they fly the one with the what do you call that? the South Korean flag right now.
Yeah.
He said, well, that would have to be debated. And I told him, well, those people up north do not debate well. But yes, I would like to see it end. But I'm afraid now. I have some concerns about this. Because I was in the Korean War, I have watched things that are going on for it. Like that Chinese philosopher said, in time this too shall pass. But time is dragging on and on and on. And if they ever come to peaceful terms there, I'll feel that my time there wasn't wasted. But right now I feel my time there was wasted. I felt that I did a good thing by going there. But I did what all GIs do, because I didn't have to be there. And when one day I said to myself, what the hell am I doing here? I don't have to be here. But at the time I thought we were really doing something. And we did salvage the South Korean nation, and that government was set up. I believe that it's hard to understand how after only 5 years of democratic activity.
So coming to and attending this kind of conference and conventions make you feel being recognized.
Yes.
And do have more promotion so that others can join you.
Yep.
And having this kind of interview for the future generations to come, you can give them your message.
Yes.
And lessons of the war.
And something that is bothering me now is the Internal Revenue Service is denying the people that are in Korea right now, the soldiers, denying that they are war veterans. And they are war veterans because there had not been a peace signed, and some of them are getting killed. I think they've lost something like 1,500 people over there. They are war dead. They are war dead, and they are not. They're not recognizing them as war veterans when they come home.
ILS should work on ending this war quickly as possible.
Well, I don't think that's their function. I don't think that's their philosophy.
I know.
I think they're worried about losing money someplace. That's what they're always thinking about. And now I am wondering, because they're talking about the people that served in Korea since the ceasefire. Since I think 1955, I think is the date. Well, what about the veterans that served there before 1950 on the occupation duty? And if I ask about that, am I going to call attention to that so that they will restrict them from joining our organization? Of course, there are not that many left yet. There are not that many left yet, but these people are comrades of mine. We have certain sometimes I forget what I want to say. We have certain affiliations. We have certain affiliations. We're all the same. That's why I didn't belong to I never joined the VFW or the American Legion, because I didn't feel that we were comrades. But these people, we all went through the same things, and we meet, and I made some new friends, and all of the reunions I've been to for the Hyman and for the 7th Infantry Division and for here, I never met anybody there that I served with.
Oh. John, you did an interview with me a long time ago.
Yeah.
And now you saw the establishment, the construction of Korean War Veteran Digital Memorial.
Yeah.
Have you checked into it? Have you seen?
Lately?
Yeah. The website that I built?
Oh, no, I haven't seen that. Did you look at that tape that I sent you? When we were down there for the dedication in I think it was 95. Okay, I can put it on DVD for you. You probably didn't want to have anything to do with VHS. The first part of it is a short program with water concrete and the history of the war. And the second part is a tape that I made when I was down there. What I did was videotape all of the statues, mainly the faces. I wanted to do all the faces. This was for my own benefits. And then after I finished taping that, then I interviewed people. A lot of Koreans. There were Koreans there with their fancy dresses on, you know, and everything. And people that walking along just coming there to see the monument. I interviewed people from Ireland, England, Holland, and you want me to send you the DVD?
Yeah. So, yeah, I would like to have it. And so you haven't seen the website actually?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I don't have the computer.
Oh.
I got to go up to my daughter some.
Yeah.
And sometime when she works, and when she works and she's not working, then you know, we have to coordinate the time to do it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
I want you to look at it, and I want you to share your opinions about it. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it isn't as expansive as the one I'm giving you now. Is this going to go on that too?
We are going to edit some of the parts, and I wonder. I think I can put it together, you know,
Yeah.
so as two separate interviews.
Well, the thing that I expressed the most in the interview that I gave you down at the church was that the part about the prisoners being released. That was the most important part because it added a month to the war. And that was when they hit us on pork chop over in Chorwan. After that, and the story that I got was that the commanding general of the 7th Division dropped a lot of leaflets on the Chinese, telling them, see, the Chinese had a field piece dug into the hill. They loved to do tunnels. And every now and then they would drag that field piece out and bang away a few rounds, drag it back in again. So the commanding general from the 7th Infantry dropped a lot of leaflets. You know, they were millions of leaflets. I mean, that was a leaflet war, almost as much as the artillery. And telling them that to celebrate our country's birthday on the 4th of July, they were going to go down and take that gun out. Well, that's a wrong thing to do. You don't tell them what you're going to do. Because when they went down there to take that gun out, see, they would run that gun out and have maybe a platoon of infantry to protect it. And when they went down to run that gun out, to take that gun out, the gun wasn't there. Instead they had a regiment of infantry in there. The regiment of infantry came out, decimated. Charlie Company was the company they sent down there. Decimated them. We never heard anything from them again. And then they kept on going up the hill, up to Pork Chop. And they fought there for about a week. And that's where my 7th Provisional Company came in. We went up and we, in support. They didn't send us out on the hill. We were in support, firing down from the hill. Now when we got there, you had to be very careful what you're firing because they were all intermingled. The enemy and the U.S. troops. And outnumbered, overrun all the time. So here's an interesting thing. they have what the artillery calls time on target. And that's the big guns in the rear. Artillery's in the rear, you want to get in the artillery. The big guns in the rear would fire, and they would go over the positions. Every time they would go over a position, those guns on that position would fire, until even when they're going over the mortars would go off. It's all timed. We call it flash. And they would notify the troops on the hill that they could get a hold of, you know, they had communication, to get under cover. Then they'd get in the safest place they could find, because all of that ordnance was going to land on that hill at the same time. And it would just did very bad things to the Chinese. Very bad thing. And here's something you're probably going to edit it out. Sanitation. When you're on the line for 2 years in the trenches, sanitation is a very big thing. And you had to have places to do number one. You understand what number one is?
Yeah.
You couldn't just whiz any place you wanted to.
Right.
Couldn't. So they went back to the artillery, and they got canisters that the ordnance came in. And they dug holes 3 feet deep, filled it up 18 inches with stone, set those canisters in, and filled the rest of the way up with stone. So you got 3 feet of stone there. And then, you know, they put 2 or 3 of them like that in a pit at the same time, see? And you know, when you had to use them, that's where you went. So the Chinese had their places over there where they lived, and they were underground, and they had vents sticking up out of the ground, see? So they get air down there. So whenever the Chinese would overrun at the position, they'd drop hand grenades down those things.
Oh.
They thought they were going down into the, because see, they thought we were living in holes in the ground too. And they'd drop 4 or 5 or 3 whatever hand grenades they had there.
And then,
yeah, after about 2 or 3 seconds, they got an awful surprised look on their face. You're going to have to cut this out. And they had them all along the line, you know, all along the line. But you had to have them. And they also, early in the trench warfare, would eat their sea rations, put a few stones in them, and hang them on a barbed wire.
Yep.
Well, after a while, barbed wire is jingling all the time, and they're firing at it, you know. They're spraying with whatever equipment they had there. They're shooting down in there without going out there. And finally, a lieutenant said, "We got to find out what's going on." So he came with a great big light, you know, and he went in the bunker, wait till the jingling started, because it was very often, every night, and shined the light out there, and there's rats getting into the sea ration cans. So they put a lot of fire the next day down on the other side to keep their heads down, and everybody had to go out, pick up these cans, get them off the wire. And they told them, if you put any more cans on the wire, you won't have the artillery to help you. You're going to go out and get them anyway. And well, a lot of rats, a lot of rats. The bunkers were made out of big timbers, like railroad ties, big timbers. And they were designed to receive a certain amount of direct hits. For instance, a machine gun bunker would design to maybe take 6 or 7 hits, you know, so they wouldn't lose that position. Rifle bunkers were not so sturdy. They made them out of these timbers, and then they put stone on them, covered them with stone. They were easy to find. They were easy for them to find, but they were easy to find anyway because they were like rooms on the trench line. They're like houses on the trench line. But the timbers were not actually square. So the rats would get behind the timbers. So the guys that spend time when they're off duty, you know, it's off alert. See, they hit 50% alert, 50% watching, 50% sleeping or eating or whatever. They would, with their flashlights at night, look through these spaces between the timbers and stab the rats with their bayonets. It'd stink. It would stink. Smell bad.